Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
And thank you all for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and start the meeting. Today is April 24th, our second meeting of the month, and I'm calling this meeting to order. I have on our agenda our meeting with our guest, Chief Ron Thomas. And I have with us our board members, Larry Martinez, Julia Richmond, and Alfredo Reyes. And I believe Tamisha is also going to be joining us. All right, so we will get started with announcements. We recently held a presentation on April 21st, which was just this past Tuesday, by invitation from council members Sarah Parody and Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez. There was a nice turnout. There was about 40 people there, including the participants, OIM, myself. Julia was also attending. Thanks, Julia, for going. And also we had community members. It was held over on the west side where SEIU has its offices, and Immigration Rights Coalition was our host that night. All the public safety leaders were present. Director Gardner, Sheriff Diggins, Fire Chief Fulton was there, and so was Chief Thomas. And there were questions about the recent appointments of the Department of Safety positions, the new director of policy, the new director of the chief of staff has just recently been hired, and then a chief compliance officer as well. And other questions were presented regarding why the sheriff doesn't post the number of suicides on their website, which that was an interesting response on the part of the sheriff. He directed us to go to the medical examiner's website to know about suicides that have happened in the jail. And also regarding the promotions that I just mentioned, there were other questions, but I won't take time today to talk about that. But it was a very good event. I think, the community that was there heard some good information, and they also were able to hear the responses from the public safety leadership. Uh, I have a photo, but I'm scared to try and share it. So not because it's a bad photo, because my technical skills might not allow for real sharing. So anyway, we'll move on. Uh, if somebody's got noise in the background, can you mute, please? Thank you. I wanted to give you an update that we have extended an offer to our selected candidate for the board administrator position. That offer was extended on April 21st. He's accepted the verbal offer, but HR is waiting for acceptance of the written offer, which is today. His start date is going to be May 17th. And the reason for it being rather far away, in my opinion, it was described to me as that we submit offers 3 weeks out from a verbal acceptance, which would be Tuesday, May 12th. And since this is an internal candidate, must transfer on a Sunday, a better start for him as well as our, I guess, the tech people would be Sunday, May 17th. So that's when William Fulton is going to, Fenton, excuse me, William Fenton. I gave you a brief description of his background, and he's very enthusiastic about our work, and we're very happy to have him join our team as soon as possible. So as soon as I get the green light to talk to him, I'm going to be talking with him about the onboarding piece. We still have two mayoral vacancies on our board, Terrence Carroll's and now Dawn Holden Hale. And the mayor, as far as we know, the mayor's office is currently evaluating those applications that they received in February. I did get the spreadsheet from Daniel. We will have two board members ending their terms this year. One will be Julia and one will be David. All right. And since we have quorum, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the March 27th. Let's see, wait. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 10th. We don't have minutes for March 27th's meeting because it was an administrative meeting and we were conducting interviews. So there was no business conducted on that date. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Alfredo, and a second, please?
Second.
Larry, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion.
I need to abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
Thank you, Julia. All right,
Mhm.
thank you. All right, so this is the time of the meeting when we allow for public comment. And we have several participants that are in the meeting. Let's see. Nicole, can you let me know if anyone has raised their hand? Please raise your hand. You will have 3 minutes. If you click on the bottom button or state your name on the Q&A, you can be unmuted. And if you're on a phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand to ask a question or make a comment. I don't see any hands. Give them a minute. Sometimes it takes a little bit to figure out the technology. Okay. All right. We will give opportunity for the community to ask questions after the board has asked questions of Chief Thomas. So you will have another opportunity, but I was hoping you might want to take the opportunity now. All right, we will go ahead and get started with our questions for the chief. Chief, thank you so much for taking time this morning to be with us today.
You bet.
Oh, wonderful. I wanted to ask you about what is the status now of the EBD? I know that you provided the final, what you would call the final revisions of the EBD policy, and that has been submitted to our OIM.
Correct.
And but I want to ask you specifically about something that I've been concerned about, which is your evaluation criteria.
Yes.
As it was described to us by Director Gardner, it is a pilot program.
Correct.
All right. And that pilot will run for how long?
A year.
1 year. Is that sufficient time for an adequate evaluation?
I believe so. I mean, we can obviously reevaluate, but I think 1 year is a sufficient amount of time.
Typically, evaluations do run longer because of the fact that you want to make sure that you have sufficient data
Sure.
to be able to make that a very credible evaluation. So, what is the reason for making it so short?
I mean, I really have no reason other than I think a year is a sufficient period of time. I know that there's I know that your team and OIM and some others have some concerns about it, and so I want to be able to be responsive to some of the observations that we've made, and so I think a year's time is an appropriate period of time to at least provide some analysis of what we've seen.
Okay. And who is going to be handling that evaluation? Is it someone in the in your previous experience, meaning you've hired this person before, or is this a
So,
new person?
yeah. So, as you know, or maybe you don't know, the executive director's office and also OIM will be doing their own analysis. We are still in talks with a professor at the University of Georgia who has previously done some analysis of our body-worn camera program. So we do have a relationship. We're still, I think, kind of going through acceptance of the project that we put in front of him. But we have identified a number of criteria that we would like to be part of the analysis.
So in this instance, we don't have a neutral evaluator. They've already had experience with you on another program. Was there a reason why we wouldn't be able to get someone new and with us have not had what might be perceived as a bias?
Well, I mean, I think one of the challenges is getting somebody to do something at no cost, and so I think that limits us a little bit. And so, I think that the analysis that this team did relative to our body worn camera program was an unbiased analysis.
Okay, you understand that that would not necessarily lend itself to that perception of being neutral, right?
I can see how it'll be taken that way.
Okay. Julia, I'll let you ask the question, please.
Yeah, I guess I would tend to agree with the chief in terms of a year being a plenty sufficient time frame for a pilot. And I would even say that if we continue longer than a year, we're just kind of rolling this into a full program. So I appreciate that duration, and I think that's enough to evaluate as long as the evaluation is sort of robust.
So, what is the name of the evaluator that you've more or less picked?
His name is Abdul, again, we're still in discussions as to whether or not this is a project that he wants to take on. We've had a number of discussions, and he seems interested, but still having those discussions.
When do you think that you'll be finalizing?
Well, hopefully soon. I mean, because we want to launch here pretty soon, and so hopefully, we'll continue to gather the appropriate data. Hopefully soon we can, because I think, it'd be appropriate for them to talk to us about some things that they might think that we hadn't already thought of to collect for the analysis.
And the data that you're going to collect will be those surveys that you that were mentioned. I think it was.
No. I mean, I think that the surveys and the that was done on the website and that was done at the numerous community meetings, that's separate and distinct. And so I think we want to begin collecting data specific to outcomes of the EBD project.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
The
So
outcomes piece.
percentage of cases that are diverted to education-based development, percentage of successful completions, the percentage of repeat of similar offenses, complainant satisfaction, subject officer satisfaction, the types of offenses that are diverted to education-based development, the percentage of DPD and OIM alignment, the length of time that EBD cases take to reach conclusion, the length of time that all cases take to reach conclusion.
Okay. And would you be willing to share that criteria that you're just listing now with us? We haven't
Sure.
seen that criteria previously.
Sure.
All right, very good. All right. One of our recommendations in our annual report was that the DPD should update its closure letters to ensure that they include a summary of the complaint, the names of the subject officers, the potential violations that we're investigating, and the findings for each allegation. And if there was a policy that was violated, the letter should include what, if any, disciplinary action was taken in a department. if appropriate, if there
Mhm.
was a reason for that, perhaps an apology. Have
Mhm.
there been any changes to the closure letters to date?
Yes, yes, they've been changed for some time.
And please tell me, what were the changes that were made?
So there is a much more in-depth description of the violation. The actual department order of disciplinary action is also included if there is some sort of loss of time, whether it's fine time or suspension. Um, there is language essentially apologizing for the conduct, and then if there is no loss of time, if the case is exonerated, not sustained, something like that, there is an opportunity for them to see the full investigation
Okay,
to understand how we came to that conclusion.
thank you. And when was that implemented?
I think we've made a number of changes over the course of the last year.
If you would be willing to let us see, redacted, obviously, but
Sure,
if we could see a sample of a letter
sure.
that was issued recently, that shows these different changes, that would be very helpful. Obviously, we had that issue with a previous matter, and so would like to see where we stand now. Julie?
Certainly.
Yeah, we don't need to see redacted based on the privilege we have to information. And then the other thing is that we continue to get feedback from constituents that the letters are insufficient in their detail. And our recommendation, I think, was in 2023 for these letters to become clear. I think some of the changes in the 23-24 timeframe were cursory at best, but where we have gotten still remains very confusing for constituents and very unsatisfying. And so perhaps a more resident-centric approach on that could be helpful because people are often dealing with significant trauma, a confusing system. And so despite the fact that there have been some changes made, it's something we hear actually quite frequently from residents.
Fair.
And a matter was brought to our attention recently from the Denver Justice Project, and I know that you've already responded, but I wanted the public to learn about this issue, that there were some individuals that they took pictures of an event, a police event happening, and
Correct.
they were wearing masks.
Correct.
And so that concerned the community members that were observing this.
Certainly.
And just a note that when they approached the police, those that were unmasked, I assume, gave them their cards and gave them their names and everything.
Mhm.
As we learned afterwards, we submitted it to the OIM, and then the OIM forwarded it to you all.
Mhm.
What happened? The concern was that we saw police with masks on.
Yes.
DPD
Yes.
police with masks on.
Yes.
And so if you could elaborate for the community as to what happened and why they were wearing masks.
Yes.
But before we do that, can we just say two things? One is that the mayor has an executive order that prohibits masking except in very few circumstances, and that city council also passed an ordinance prohibiting that behavior. The circumstances for that include SWAT operations, specialty operations, and public health. And so there are very narrow exceptions to the masking ordinance. And we have heard from you directly, Chief, that is something you find to be important, and that, unnamed officers is not a protocol that unidentifiable officers is not a protocol that you follow. So I just want to frame the question with it's illegal and it's something you've told us that your department won't be doing. So when it showed up in our inbox, I guess we were.
We were concerned. We were concerned.
Sure, reasonably so. So let me just explain the situation. So there was a search warrant that was executed, resulting from an ongoing investigation. There were 18 police officers assigned to District 2, assigned to our SWAT team that engaged in that search warrant operation. There were 2 individuals that were undercover officers that were on scene. Those are the 2 officers that you see that have face coverings. They do have tactical vests that say Denver Police on the back and police on the front, and they have a Denver Police badge. Because of the fact that they are working in an undercover capacity, that is one of the allowable exceptions to the ordinance. And so they were, in fact, in an undercover capacity, continuing to further the investigation that precipitated the search warrant.
And what we saw in the pictures were DPD, they were identified as police on their back. They had
Yes.
police on the back.
Yes.
Although when you first see the pictures and you don't see that marking, they almost look like the pictures we see on the TV news.
Certainly.
That looks like ice.
Certainly.
And so that probably started the whole
Yeah.
perception that it was ICE operating with DPD. That was a conclusion that was drawn initially, unfortunately. Okay, Julia.
Yeah, just a couple of questions on that. So those officers were undercover, but then they handed cards with their names on them to folks at the
No,
scene.
so those cards that were presented were cards of other officers that were on scene. So those
Okay.
those 2 officers were not not the officers that submitted cards.
And then do you have a part of the uniform that you provide to those officers? It looked in the picture like they were sort of wearing something they brought from home, but is there sort of a mask of that type a face covering of that type that you provide as part of the standard kit?
No, I mean, so obviously what we provided is the tactical vest and the Velcro patches that say police, Denver Police, the police badge. The face covering is not something that we provide.
Okay, so even though it's like an official act of their duties, we don't provide them with like a standard piece of equipment as part of that duty. That to me is sort of strange that people would, show up wearing some sort of random covering. But it's neither here nor there. Can you just speak a little bit to how often you think folks are showing up with face coverings in the course of, is it happening a couple times a day or?
Well, I will tell you this, that we probably engage in a search warrant similar to that, probably on a daily basis. So we do have SWAT operators and members of other units that conduct those operations. I would say that it is rare that we have undercover officers also taking part in that situation. I think it really just depends on, what they may be needed for. Are they needed to help find evidence? Are they needed to help coach questioning of detainees? It really just depends on what their need is on scene.
And then just one follow-up. Maybe it's a stupid question, but because they are interacting human to human, is there a way that they could inform people as to why they might be wearing face coverings, or clarifying for constituents like how they are in compliance with the ordinance or something, just to, I can imagine in this world where masked ICE agents are showing up and freaking people out, that having clarity as to why folks have their faces covered and why that is allowable could be helpful for both trust and not like creating community panic and having people flee their homes for fear of ICE.
Fair. And so I think that that can be a responsibility of a supervisor who is on site at those activities to be the one to provide the reasoning why there happen to be two people out of the total that are present that are wearing face coverings. I think the other sort of concern is that, you know, I think we need to be careful about, you know, giving away too much information relative to our continuing investigation. So, yeah, I think we just have to be, careful about letting people know that yes, we're not just done here. We are continuing to investigate people that or groups that are involved in this kind of activity.
Sure. Obviously, pointing at them and saying they're undercover is not very helpful for the operation, but helping folks understand that these are members of our team. They're allowed to wear these face coverings, and there's a reason. Communication can always help, right?
Sure.
Especially in this world where we've got federal agents, fear mongering and causing a lot of harm. And one of the things that we have talked about is that often those agents are wearing police uniforms, and so it creates a weird, lack of trust in the police because they look like DPD even though they're not, right? So I think it can be to your advantage as well, helping people understand we're not conducting ICE operations, we're not acting like ICE in this case. I think it can be as much to your benefit as the
Sure.
community.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think we have done a lot to make sure that people understand and can identify the differences between the various DPD uniforms worn by our various teams, as well as our vehicles. There's some media that's gone out to help people understand in both of those contexts.
Alfredo, just a sec. I wanted to be able to, I have the photos now up where we saw, this is what was photographed by the community members.
Yes.
And this is what I meant about the looking like ICE.
Mhm.
And we see that there are uniformed police, and then there's
Correct.
the undercover. Yeah.
Correct.
But I give credit to your uniformed police officers for sharing their cards, and it probably did de-escalate the concern a little bit by the fact that they did that. So thank you to them. Yeah,
Yeah.
Alfredo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Um, Along the same vein in this conversation, there's a lot of chaos out there that has been fomented in the search of ICE. There's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of tension. Um, and similar to what Julia was sharing around what work is being done to differentiate
Mhm.
DPD from ICE. I'm wondering, and this is part of a broader conversation too, for the fire chief and executive director Gardner and yourself. How is all of this conflict and all this chaos and all this confusion, how is it impeding your ability to do an effective job in keeping our community safe? There was a really interesting article out of The Guardian that was just published around police across the country worrying that officers are being misidentified as ICE, and
Mhm.
how then that's also leading to other instances where people are afraid to even let fire inspectors into their home.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm curious around how all of this is impeding people's ability to also be safe in their communities and also
Mhm.
benefit from the mission of the department, uh, police, public safety, fire.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I can't speak for the sheriff, obviously, but I think for police, I mean, I think my greatest concern is just the fear that is instilled in community and just, when they see, operations that we're conducting that are meant to protect the community from people that are doing harm to the community, the fear that it invokes for people, being concerned whether or not this is a legitimate police operation versus an ICE operation. So certainly, I think that fear alone is problematic in a community. I think beyond that, just I think the lack of awareness, and I think I've worked with Councilwoman Torres and Councilwoman Sandoval to continue to do community education to make sure that people understand that we don't work with ICE, we don't cooperate with ICE at all. But I am concerned about people not reporting crimes, particularly domestic violence and other things like that, for fear that their immigration status may play a role. And so I think we need to continue to engage in that education piece to try to limit the fear. And but again, I think that my take is that a lot of their behavior is meant to do just that, and that is invoke fear. And so it's unfortunate that some of the things that we do, I think, invoke that same fear.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Madam Chair, if I could switch gears a little bit.
Yes, go ahead.
Um, will you give us an update on the status of the drone pilot program,
Yeah,
Chief?
yeah. Yeah,
And
thank
how
you
are
for
you
that.
assessing the effectiveness of the pilot?
Yeah, so to date, we have done over 1,100 flights. Um, in about 85% of those, the drone was the first on scene, so it beat the officer on scene. So I think that has improved our response times, improved our intelligence gathering, so that responding officers know what they're coming into. Um, uh, Almost 40% of the time, it was identified that a police response was not even needed, so we were able to cancel that police response and divert those officers to other important calls. Um, in about a quarter of the deployments, they provided necessary overwatch as the officers engaged in their duties on scene. About 150 times, they actually helped locate a person that we were looking for, and nearly 50 times, they helped us locate a vehicle that we were looking for. Just a couple of anecdotal stories. Um, there was one response where there was an individual who had secreted himself on a roof, armed with a firearm, uh, um, potentially to ambush officers as they responded. The drone was able to observe that activity so that we could make a safe approach, disarm that individual. But if this had just been a police only response, we would have not seen that individual. Another anecdotal story about the value is that a situation where someone had run from the police and hidden. Where they chose to hide was in about waist deep water. This was on a particularly cold night. Um, and they were basically hiding in the water, and we would have not have found them, or at least not have found them in the time frame that we did without the drone. And this person, when we finally secured them and turned them over to medical professionals, they were already hyperthermic. And so I think the presumption is they probably would have died had they stayed in that water undetected. So I say all that to say that our pilot has been very successful, and so we intend to move forward with a drone as a first responder program, initially just covering the downtown core area, the area with which the pilot was already conducted.
Uh, Thank you for that. I'd like to follow up, by the nature of a pilot program, there's also a lot of lessons of what's not working
Mhm.
and what is being done to improve that. And I know there was a lot of concerns around privacy,
Mhm.
and so on. What are you learning in the pilot phase that's not working? What are you improving?
Mhm.
What I don't want to just paint a rosy picture of it. I
Sure.
also want the community to hear how you're
Fair.
improving this, how you're addressing the issues head on that are coming up.
Fair. I would have to talk to the team to identify if there are any lessons learned of things that we need to fix or adapt or do differently. I can share that the privacy is a significant concern, and so two things relative to privacy. One, we made sure that when the drone is responding to the location of the call, that its camera is fixed on the horizon, so it's not able to see anything other than the horizon. And then once the drone gets to the dispatch location, that's when it drops. All of that is fed into evidence.com. And so there is an opportunity for people to view that footage if it's not connected to a criminal event.
Yeah, if you could then follow up, Chief, on what are those refinements, what are those lessons
Sure.
that are being learned and implemented, please? Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Chief, I still wanted, so the data that you're collecting you're saying it goes into this program called evidence.com?
Yes. Yeah, so it's the same database that all of our body worn camera footage goes into. And so there, just like everything else, there is retention period requirements and all of that.
What is the retention period?
30 days.
And so, and after that, certainly if you're pursuing an investigation or criminal
Yeah.
matter, it's going to be longer than
Yeah.
that. It's kept, right? Is it taken off of evidence.com and placed somewhere else more secure, or
So
what's the process?
yeah, appreciate the question. So similar to a body worn camera, so if it is valuable evidence, then it is tagged by the officer or tagged by the drone operator. It's tagged, and the tag allows it to be retained until it's no longer necessary. Anything that is not tagged automatically rolls off in 30 days.
And do these drones fall under the privacy protections that we have for other areas of your work?
Not similar in terms of retention period to ALPRs. ALPRs, as you know, has a 21-day retention period.
So if what they have observed through the course of their use, that one matter, I, as a public member, can get on evidence.com and see this?
Correct. Well, there's actually, so no, you can't get onto evidence.com, but what you can do is that feed is then downloaded to a public facing dashboard that allows you to see that.
And help me understand how I would actually do that. Would that be that I would ask you, someone at DPD,
No,
or?
if you go to the DPD website, there is a transparency portal where there's a number of things that we are transparent about, and those things can be found there as well.
Okay. You're talking to a non-tech person, so
Sure, I
it seems a
understand.
bit daunting, even, with your basic description there. Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, so originally the pilot program was using flock drones. And then I think when we talked to you maybe in January, we were sort of having a supply chain issue, couldn't get those drones. So are you using the Skydio drones instead, or sort of like and what is the current arrangement with flock?
We have no arrangement with flock. And so what happened is, and this began in October when the DNC was here, there were a number of drone vendors that we engaged with. Two of them happened to be Flock and Skydio. We entered into no-cost pilot opportunities with both of them. Skydio was very responsive, was able to get products on site and be able to launch that pilot very quickly. Flock for whatever reason, drug their feet, was not able to deliver. And then ultimately we decided that we weren't going to wait for them. So we never actually did receive anything from Flock. We never did launch our Flock drone program. And so all of the drone pilot data was comprised through our engagement with Skydio.
And how long will it, you mentioned that it's a 30-day retention, but do we own the data?
Excuse me?
Do we own the data? Does Denver own
Yes,
the
we do.
data?
We do. Yeah,
And it's not being shared outside of Denver?
that is correct.
And which entities can access it?
Only DPD. And so the only reason why individuals can access footage from drone flights that have no criminal nexus is because we have taken that and put it on a public facing dashboard. So we're not sharing any sensitive data.
Julia?
Yeah, I think the program is pretty delayed, right? And it's starting because of this other couple of issues. Can you sort of talk about like what's the period of performance of this pilot and how will you determine if
Yeah,
it's
well, I
successful?
mean, I think that we are near conclusion of the pilot period, and so we are prepared to move forward and continue to drone as a first responder in our downtown core area. And our ultimate goal, I think, is to expand to other areas of the city.
Now, in this instance, we were gifted the drones, is that correct?
Well, we engaged in a pilot that they didn't charge us for, but obviously, moving forward, we will have to, there'll be a contract where we're paying them to provide the service
How
or
many
provide
drones
the
were
hardware.
how many drones were provided free of charge?
Initially, there were, I believe, 2 drones that were provided.
Chief, I'm curious if I could jump in, Madam Chair. What I'm hearing you say is we're paying for the service of flying the drones, servicing the drones, or are the pilots based within DPD? Are they
Yeah, so
DPD staff that are flying the
yeah,
drones?
it's DPD officers that are specifically trained in drone operations that are piloting the drones. We own obviously everything that they capture. The 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 hardware, I think, is leased to include the drones and the docking stations. And then there's a service agreement that comes along with that.
What would be the total cost of that?
I'm thinking for the remainder of the year, I think $150,000.
Is there I'm sure that for any kinds of contracts, they have to go through an RFP process or something along those lines?
No, because we already have engaged with Skydio, and because Skydio has demonstrated to be the only people that can operate in the downtown environment. It's a single source. Now, I talked about wanting to expand across the city with drones as a first responder. And so we probably would engage in an RFP process because there may be someone that operates more effectively outside of the downtown core.
And when would you start that process?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to identify is funding sources and cost before we start initiating an RFP process.
Oh, okay. So that hasn't begun yet.
No, it has not.
Thank you. All right. Other questions from the board? Actually, I do have another question if none of the other board members have something. It's been brought to my attention that there was a recent change in your use of force policy regarding the taser.
Yes.
And that there's been a change. You've reduced the level of, and I apologize that I don't know the exact terms, the resistance level from
Correct.
active aggression to defensive resistance. Tell us, first of all, when did that just recently got implemented, correct?
Correct.
What was the date
So
on that implementation?
I don't have that for you. In fact, it may still be going through the approval process. But I can talk to you about sort of the lead up to that. So two things. Number one, we upgraded our taser system. So we used to have taser sevens, which were single deployment, two-prong systems that I think were cumbersome and difficult and often had failed activations and negative success rate. The company upgraded to what's called a Taser 10. The difference between the Taser 10 and the Taser 7 is the Taser 10 shoots single probes. And so it's much more precise in terms of being able to get a connection. You still need to get two connections, but once you get the two connections, it will let you know that you have a completed cycle. And so we recognize the need to change policy because there's, now that we have the Taser 10s, or now that we're moving towards the Taser 10s, there's not an opportunity for what's called a drive stun. So what the Taser 7s, if you remove the cartridge, you could actually make direct contact with someone and actually have that same taser effect on someone. The Taser 10 doesn't have that capability. It just has those individual probes that it fires. The other thing is that our policy team did some research and identified that DPD was an outlier in having active aggression be the threshold with which a taser activation is appropriate, and what that results in is greater opportunity for injury to suspects and officers. And so the proposed changes to the policy include reducing the threshold one level to defensive resistance, so that officers are able to more quickly engage and get individuals under control without the risk of injury to suspects or officers.
Okay. I think I'm very concerned. I think there's been a publishing of your policy change, and that indicates implementation. And if that is the case, did the OIM have an opportunity to review that change in your use of
If
force policy?
if it's been published, then yes, they did.
Can you tell me whether or not you received a response from the OIM regarding this change in your policy?
I can't tell you specifically whether or not our policy team received a response from Ms. Castle.
If they did not receive the response from OIM, should it have been published?
Again, I don't know that it actually was published, but certainly if we did not, I think if we requested that we receive a response within a reasonable time frame and then did not, then I think that it would have been appropriate to move forward.
Right. Well, under the Denver Revised Municipal Code, you are to provide the monitor with reasonable notice about a change in your policies and an opportunity to make recommendations before implementing or adopting a new substantive policy or practice. And in this instance, if you're already publishing and you don't have the response from the OIM, by the date you gave them to respond and you implemented anyway, you're going against the ordinance here.
I think our city attorney has a different interpretation of that.
Who is your city attorney that we should talk to about how they're interpreting that ordinance? Because it makes sense to me that you have to provide the OIM with reasonable notice, and
Correct.
then they have to have an opportunity to respond before implementation.
Right, and I believe that all of those criteria were met.
I think if you check your if, when you go back, you check the dates in which the policy was provided to the OIM and the date in which you published, there's probably a contradiction there.
Well,
So here's my point, sir. We're seeing instances in which it's this ordinance or this particular part of the ordinance is not being complied with, and also whether or not information that is requested from the OIM to you is not being responded to. So we're very concerned about the fact that uh, DPD does not seem to respect this requirement to allow OIM to review this substantive policy change, certainly changing from active aggression to defensive resistance is a very major change. You make it sound like it's just one level down, but that would probably implicate a broader group of the community being affected if you've reduced the level significantly like that. So there's two issues here. One, that the ordinance wasn't complied with, and the second is allowing that review by the OIM before implementation so that we can really have a chance to look and give our response.
well, I would submit that we did comply with the ordinance, and I can certainly get back with you with evidence of that.
All right, I would like the independent monitor to respond.
So we received the new use of force policy on April 9th, and we're asked to review it and make our suggestions and recommendations by April 23rd, which was yesterday. We discovered that the policy was implemented without our recommendations on April 14th in Power DMS. So we did not have the opportunity to provide recommendations. It was published without our recommendations, and that's where we stand.
Julia, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I'd like to request a letter from the city attorney that represents the DPD as to their interpretation of the ordinance and the requirement of the DPD to provide both fair notice and collaboration with the monitor's office on policy. I'd like that in writing. The ordinance is very clear in its intention and purpose. The language is very clear. And so if a city attorney is interpreting that differently, it is magical thinking. And also, if one understands the history and context of the creation of the monitor's office, it is also devoid of historical context. And so happy to have a conversation about what the law requires here. And I would like to start with the written opinion of the city attorney if we can.
And in the meantime, I don't believe that we can can the implementation be rescinded and thus allow the OIM an opportunity to fully respond before we go and put it out into the field?
Well, we're certainly open to a response from OIM, and if there are reasonable recommendations that we agree with, we can certainly implement that.
Well, this is putting the cart before the horse situation. If you're already implementing them, what's the point? You're basically thumbing your nose, shall we say, if implementation has already occurred before a response could be received. And what's the point of giving the deadline and then implementing and then saying, well, if there's reasonable response here, then we'll change it. I think the ordinance is clear that it has to be that you give that opportunity to respond, consider it, and then perhaps implementation.
The word in the ordinance is shall, which is unequivocal in its direction from a legal standpoint. So to me, not sure how we got here, but we're sort of missing the basics.
Yeah. All right, questions from the board members on this? Liz, go ahead.
Well, really
Oh,
quickly
I'm sorry.
before we
Yeah,
move
go ahead.
on,
No, we're not going to move on. Fredo, go ahead.
well, to Julia's point, Chief, and I want to get you on record committing that you're going to provide that written opinion because I haven't heard a yes from you on that.
Well, I'll talk to our city attorney about what you're asking for, certainly.
So does that mean that no letter would be provided to us?
And I didn't say that. What I said is that I will talk to the city attorney and let them know what the COB's expectation is.
Oh, well, or you could provide us with the name so that we can be in contact with them.
I think I did, but certainly I can connect you all.
Liz, go ahead.
It is not just an issue of publishing or adopting policy before obtaining our recommendations. Another issue with regards to the ordinance, specifically as to EBD, we have requested repeatedly the community surveys that were provided to the community unredacted, and that request has repeatedly been denied. We're also seeking all of the data and the research that goes into the training that is going to be provided to officers in EBD. And the response has been and is, well, you'll get it when the officers get EBD. That's not sufficient. If the OIM is to engage in EBD in the policy of making any kind of recommendations regarding EBD, which we continue to oppose, we need to know what the underlying training is, what data supports that training, how it's going to achieve the goals that are set forth for the officers. I'm not asking for the implementation and what training is going to be given to the officers. I'm asking for the actual information and the data that is the basis of the training information. Once again, we've made that request pursuant to the ordinance, and that request has repeatedly been denied.
So we will be pursuing our options on that as well. This is now unfortunately lending itself to a pattern of practice of denying data that is reasonably in our scope to request and yet being stonewalled. So we are concerned about that continuing. I want to, if there are no other questions from the board, I'm going to open it to the community to ask questions. Any other questions from the board? Okay. All right. Our public participants, if you would like to ask a question, oh, yes, I see some questions here. Hold on just a sec. All right.
I got it. She's able to talk.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Ms. Tingley, go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you for having me. My name is Cassis Tingley and I write for Denverite. I had a question about that April 16th incident with the masked officers. You had mentioned, or Chief Thomas, you had mentioned that sometimes the undercover officers are necessary, like they're needed on scene for one reason or another. Why were they needed during this specific operation?
Well, there's details about the operation that I just can't divulge, but I can just tell you that there are a number of reasons why undercover officers would be needed on scene. One could be because they were the ones who were in the home to secure the evidence for the search warrant, and it would be important for them to be able to be there to point out those locations where evidence can be found, or if they are in direct contact with an informant who provided them the information, then they have, I think, the best basis of knowledge to understand where to look for evidence. Also, if there are people being detained who need to be questioned, I think it will be important for the case investigator, who may also be the person that's doing the undercover work specific to that investigation, to be able to prompt questions, hear responses, to lead to additional inquiry. And so for all of those reasons, I think that it is appropriate when those circumstances exist to have undercover officers present at the scene of a search warrant or some other type of operation. I also understand that it's important that they be distinguished by both the community and other officers, which is why they had tactical vests that clearly said police and Denver Police, and they had Denver Police badges.
Thank you for that. And then I have one other follow-up question. Board member Julia Richmond had mentioned the lack of standardized face masks, and how what the officers were wearing kind of looked like they had brought it from home. And the concerns that she had with that looking very homemade and not very official. Is the department considering standardizing face masks for opportunities like this?
We can certainly consider that. Obviously, that would be a budgetary concern as well.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all of my questions. But, oh, wait, actually, just to clarify though, the department is not currently considering that though, correct?
Not currently, but I can certainly consider that now.
Got you. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. Other questions from the community? Okay, I have two questions, one from Kat Mooring and thought I saw something else. Kat Mooring, Kat, go ahead. Or wait, let me see. I have to unmute.
She's unmuted.
Okay, thank you, Nicole.
Hi.
Go ahead, Kat.
Hi, I'm Kat Mooring. I'm with the Denver Justice Project. I was just wondering if you have any community events regarding EBD coming up.
No, I do not.
Have you done any in 2026 so far?
No.
So beyond the surveys, that's really the only community engagement that you've done with EBD.
Well, I don't know how many community engagement events in 2025. There were two surveys where there were well over 1,000 respondents to that, and so I think that is a significant amount of community engagement.
Would you be willing to make those surveys public?
No. The information, the responses, whether they be just responses pro or con or recommendations, were provided to the OIM, but I'm not going to provide the personal information of people that engaged in the survey. I don't think that would be appropriate. I certainly didn't tell people, there was no forewarning that their identities would be revealed upon participating in the survey.
Would any sort of summary that redacts the identities be possible?
Yeah, I mean, that's already been provided to the OIM.
Could you provide initials?
That would seem to be quite onerous to do that for 1,100 or however many responses. And so I think that the true information relative to how they responded, pro or con, I think is appropriate.
Well, this is a matter of information that as to whether or not these surveys were conducted, I assume, at some of these meetings that the commanders hold in the different neighborhoods.
Correct.
Is that correct? And so whether or not we want to see these individuals, perhaps, if we could have initials, but at least to make sure that these are individual surveys, so that there wasn't any stuffing of the box or anything like that going on. This is a matter of trust, Chief.
Mhm.
It's really, we want to make sure that these are individuals in the community that are providing these responses. So that is why the request is being made. I don't know that there was a privacy issue. Uh, in other words, I sat in one of those meetings, and
Mhm.
I don't see a need to hide my identity of giving the response that I give. I think you may be on shakier ground than you realize in terms of the privacy piece. So we'd like to see the names if possible, so that we can be sure who are these individuals that are giving the response. Liz, go ahead and you had a question or a comment?
Yes, I think it is an important issue, and thank you, Cap, for bringing it up. So, under the ordinance, the OIM ordinance, we are entitled to ask for any data information within the control of the department. These surveys that were conducted are an important part of our analysis and recommendations regarding education-based development. So when the chief is in community, chief, when you're in community and you're letting the community know, as you did this week in the OIM forum, that you have community support, I appreciate that, and I take you at your word, but I need to see it. And I have asked for unredacted copies of these surveys. You have provided me with summaries. That is insufficient, and I should not have to justify my request. The ordinance is clear. You shall turn over that information. There is no privilege here, and you're talking about the OIM. Are you insinuating that we are going to share inappropriately information with the community and that we are not going to keep information sacred? We are given information regarding the most sensitive type of information there can be about law enforcement. And we do not violate the city's deliberative privilege process. I cannot wrap my head around the reasoning behind not turning over that information to us. I do not accept a summary. I am asking for a complete, unredacted copy of the surveys, including names, dates. Again, I shouldn't have to explain myself. The dates of the EBD publication on the DPD website changed without knowledge to the community repeatedly. It changed at least 3 times. So it's important for us to see when these surveys came in and which draft policy it is that they're addressing. We also need to identify, are these each separate individual folks who are filing, who are sending these surveys, or is someone engaged in stuffing the ballot? Once again, the notion that the OIM cannot receive confidential information is wrong. It is not legally sound, and frankly, is an incredible violation of trust.
All right. Any other questions from the board? All right, I do want to provide the opportunity. Thank you, Chief, for being here with us today. We will follow up on some of these questions. As you know, we ask questions and then we want to make sure that we get the responses as well.
Sure.
So
Understood.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Liz, I'd like for you to share any information with us in terms of any important developments. Obviously, we just found out about this change in the use of force policy. Any other developments? What is the status on your end on the EBD piece?
We have provided our recommendations to the department. It is with them. Again, just to reiterate, we've requested data and information that they are refusing to provide to us. It's in DPD's hands at this point. As I stated, we are not in support of EBD. We continue to make recommendations. Think there is a lot that needs to be clarified before moving forward, and I just don't know how we're going to be engaged in that process.
Tell me some of the areas that need still some clarification.
Well, as I stated, we don't know what the underlying education is going to be, or what it looks like, or anything about it. We continue to, well, at this point, all I can say is we've made additional recommendations, and we will follow up with the community regarding those recommendations.
All right, very good. Anything else you want to update us on?
We had our forum, as you covered when we started the meeting. There was a lot of information that the OIM provided to community, and we certainly urge the community to read our report that was published on March 15th. There's a lot of new information there, a lot of information that we have not previously reported that we published in aggregate form. Some highlights from our report include that the DPD discipline is the amount of discipline is down to the lowest in 4 years, while complaints are up 16%. Internal complaints are down by 24%. As I stated, EBD, we continue to oppose it. And I think one of the parts of this process is one of the challenges is the disclosure of information that we need to make for the recommendations. With regards to some complaints, we did see a rise in complaints regarding searches of vehicles up over the last 4 years, and complaints regarding general arrest procedures are also up. And that's important because these two subsections are covered under EBD. So those kinds of interactions with community members that can be incredibly impactful to community members and traumatizing are covered under education-based development. Uses of force complaints have almost doubled in 2025. However, the internal specs or specifications regarding the use of force directives, the specs have increased in addition, the specifications for use of force directives recorded. And however, internal use of force in complaints have gone down from 24 in 2024 to 6 in 2025. So complaints have gone up, but internally, the complaints of use of force have gone down. Duty to obey is a specification that's kind of a catch-all. Within the last 4 years, it has nearly doubled. As the department takes specifications, more and more specifications. Specifications are the actual policy or the procedure which is alleged to have been violated, and they're putting it under this category of duty to obey. The significance of that is duty to obey is an A through F violation, which allows for everything from oral reprimand to termination. So we don't know why they are doing that. We can't explain it, but it is it is significant. It is up to 68% of all complaints.
Liz,
Uh,
in the current status of EBD, what are they identifying will be eligible for EBD?
A through C violations.
I thought
Excuse
it
me.
was,
No, I
thought it was A through
correct.
B.
A through B. A through B.
A through B, and there's only certain parts of A through B that would be
Again,
eligible.
I can't get into the specific recommendations, and I'd have to
Not your
um,
recommendations,
yeah.
what they have published as their policy.
Well, what was published is not
Oh, it's
consistent with
still
what
not
we
up
are
to date,
reviewing
not
now.
current.
It's a new version.
Okay. The last we heard from Gardner was that only a few cases in A or B category would now be eligible.
I think I think we need to clarify that.
Okay. So we're looking forward for that clarification. All right, very good.
Few
Go ahead.
more points if there is time.
Yeah.
The number of complaints sustained is down to 11% from 18% from the year before. The most common form of discipline is written reprimand or oral reprimand, and overall 5% of officers receive discipline, which means 95% of officers receive no discipline. With regards to DSD, body-worn camera violations remain relatively the same. They do not seem to have moved since its rollout in 2023. There were 3 overdoses in the jail, 3 deaths in the jail that were confirmed to be drug overdoses. Other trends include failure to make rounds. So deputies go around to check on everyone to make sure that they're safe and there's nothing going on. So those specifications are up. Those are just briefly some highlights from our report.
I appreciate that. And to the community, we will be doing another set of presentations on our annual reports to the City Council on June 24th. And that will be promoted by both of our offices, the Office of Independent Monitor and the COB. And then the COB is going to sponsor another separate report to the community at Blair Caldwell Library. And we're setting that up hopefully on June 23rd. And we plan to do other annual report briefings. If you would like a specific briefing to your organization, please feel free to contact us, and we will make the opportunity happen for that briefing. Again, thank you, community members, for participating and hearing us, and thank you to the board for attending. And I'm going to, I don't think at this point we need a motion. We're going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. And thank you and have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thank you.